The morning sun painted golden stripes across the Montana ranch as Zarakai stepped out of the hover transport. Her violet skin shimmered in the unfamiliar earth sunlight, and her forearms moved with nervous energy. The translator chip behind her pointed ear buzzed softly as it processed the cacophony of new sounds, birds chirping, wind rustling through grass, and something else, a deep rhythmic breathing from somewhere nearby. "Welcome to Thunder Creek Ranch," said Jake Morrison, extending his weathered hand. The 60-year-old rancher had seen many things in his life, but hosting an alien diplomat was definitely a first. When the government had asked him to introduce Ambassador Zarakai to authentic Earth culture, he'd thought they meant barbecues and country music. He hadn't expected her specific request: horseback riding. Zarakai's large amber eyes, each the size of a tennis ball, blinked slowly as she studied Jake's outstretched hand. Her species, the Valerians, had been Earth's first peaceful alien contact 3 years ago. They were known for their advanced technology and reserved nature. Physical contact wasn't common in their culture, but she'd studied human customs extensively. She extended one of her lower arms and grasped his hand carefully. Her skin felt cool and smooth, like polished stone. "I am most grateful for this opportunity, Rancher Morrison," she said, her voice melodious despite the mechanical undertone of the translator. "Your government assured me you were the most skilled in teaching the art of horse riding?" Jake chuckled. "Just Jake is fine, ma'am. And yes, I've been working with horses for near about 50 years now. Though I gotta admit, I'm curious why you're so interested. Don't you folks have those fancy flying ships?" Zarakai's thin lips curved in what Jake had learned was the Valerian equivalent of a smile. "We have conquered the stars, yes. We have tamed black holes and bent space-time to our will. But in all our travels, on all the worlds we've visited, we have never encountered anything quite like your horses." She pulled out a holographic projector from her flowing robes and activated it. Images of horses throughout human history flickered in the air between them. Ancient cave paintings, medieval knights, Native American warriors, modern Olympic athletes. "I have studied them extensively, creatures that allowed themselves to be domesticated, yet retained their wild spirit, partners, not servants. The relationship between humans and horses appears unique." Jake found himself warming to the alien ambassador. Despite her strange appearance, the extra arms, the violet skin, the eyes that seemed to see everything at once, there was something genuinely curious and respectful about her manner. "Well then," he said, gesturing toward the stables, "let's go meet them." As they walked across the dusty ground, Jake noticed how Zarakai moved. Her legs were longer than a human's, giving her a gliding gait, but she seemed to struggle with the uneven terrain. Valerian cities, he'd heard, were all smooth surfaces and anti-gravity walkways. The stable was a traditional wooden structure, painted red with white trim. As they approached, several horses poked their heads out of their stalls, ears pricked forward with curiosity. Jake had expected them to be spooked by Zarakai's alien appearance and scent, but instead they seemed interested. "Oh," Zarakai breathed, all 4 hands rising to her chest in what appeared to be wonder. The translator didn't quite capture the emotion in her voice, but Jake could hear it anyway. "They're magnificent." A bay mare named Sundance stretched her neck toward them, nostrils flaring as she took in the alien's scent. Zarakai stood frozen, as if afraid to move. "Go on," Jake encouraged. "Hold out your hand, one of them, palm flat. Let her smell you." With movements slower and more careful than Jake had seen from any first-time visitor, Zarakai extended her upper right hand. Sundance sniffed delicately, then pushed her soft muzzle into the alien's palm. The sound Zarakai made was untranslatable, but it was clearly joy. Her amber eyes grew even larger, and a subtle pattern of bioluminescent dots appeared across her skin, something Jake had never seen before. "She's warm," Zarakai whispered, "and soft, but I can feel the strength underneath, like contained lightning." Jake grinned. "That's as good a description of a horse as I've ever heard. Want to meet a few more before we get you up on one?" For the next hour, Jake introduced Zarakai to various horses in his stable. There was Thunderbolt, a massive black stallion who normally intimidated visitors, but seemed to lower his head submissively for the alien. There was Whisper, a gentle paint mare who kept trying to lip at Zarakai's flowing robes. And finally, there was Luna, a silver-gray mare with intelligent eyes and a calm disposition. "I think Luna here might be perfect for your first ride," Jake said, running his hand along the mare's neck. "She's steady, smart, and patient. Been teaching folks to ride on her for years." Zarakai approached Luna slowly, mimicking the gentle movements she'd observed Jake making. When she placed all four hands on the horse's side, feeling the rise and fall of her breathing, those bioluminescent dots appeared again, brighter this time. "Your Professor Chen shared with me the history," Zarakai said softly, her eyes never leaving Luna. "How your ancestors formed partnerships with horses over 6,000 years ago. How this relationship shaped your civilization, your expansion across continents, your very evolution as a species. We Valerians pride ourselves on our logic, our technology. But this is something else entirely." Jake fetched a saddle and bridle, explaining each piece of equipment as he prepared Luna. Zarakai absorbed every detail, occasionally asking questions that showed she'd done extensive research. She knew about bits and stirrups, about different riding styles and disciplines. But book knowledge and experience were very different things. "Now, most important thing," Jake said as he finished tacking up Luna, "is to remember that riding isn't about controlling the horse. It's about communicating, working together. The horse has got 4 legs and 1,000 pounds of muscle. You've got to earn their cooperation, not demand it." Zarakai nodded solemnly. "In Valerian culture, we have a saying, 'The greatest power is that which is given freely.' I believe I understand." Jake led Luna out to the small practice arena beside the stable. The mare walked calmly, occasionally turning her head to look at Zarakai, who followed close behind. The alien's movements had changed during their time in the stable. She seemed more grounded, more aware of her body in relation to the earth beneath her feet. "All right," Jake said, bringing Luna to a stop. "First things first, mounting. Now, with those long legs of yours, this might actually be easier than for most humans. You're going to put your left foot in the stirrup, grab the saddle horn with your hands, upper hands probably best, and swing your right leg over." Zarakai studied Luna for a moment, then moved to the horse's left side. She placed her foot in the stirrup with surprising grace, gripped the saddle horn with her upper hands, and pushed off with her right leg. What happened next caught Jake completely off guard. Instead of the awkward scramble most first-time riders displayed, Zarakai flowed up and onto Luna's back like water finding its level. She settled into the saddle as if she'd been born to it, her spine naturally aligning with the horse's movement as Luna shifted her weight. "Well, I'll be damned," Jake muttered. Zarakai's eyes were closed. All 4 arms spread slightly from her body as if she were feeling the air itself. The bioluminescent patterns on her skin began to pulse in a slow rhythm, a rhythm that Jake realized matched Luna's heartbeat. "I can feel her," Zarakai breathed, her eyes snapping open. They gleamed with an emotion the translator couldn't convey. Not just her body, but her essence. Her thoughts are not like ours, not words or concepts, but emotions, intentions, images. She's curious about me. She's amused. Luna turned her head and whickered softly, as if in agreement. Jake had trained hundreds of riders over the years, but he'd never seen anything like this. Some people were natural horsemen, sure, but this was something beyond that. It was as if Zarakai's alien nervous system was somehow perfectly attuned to equine communication. "Let's start with just sitting," Jake said, though he suspected his usual beginner's curriculum was about to go out the window. "Get used to how she feels beneath you. When she breathes, when she shifts her weight." But Zarakai was already ahead of him. Her lower hands rested lightly on her thighs while her upper hands held the reins with the exact amount of pressure Jake would have recommended. Firm enough for contact, loose enough for comfort. Her posture was elegant, balanced, natural. "May we move?" she asked, and there was an eagerness in her voice that transcended species. "Let's start with a walk," Jake said. He showed her how to squeeze gently with her legs, how to use her seat and weight to communicate direction. Luna stepped forward smoothly, and Zarakai gasped. Her bioluminescent markings flared bright, creating patterns Jake had never seen before, swirls and spirals that seemed to flow across her skin like living art. "This is—" "I have no words," Zarakai said as Luna walked calmly around the arena. "I have piloted ships between stars. I have felt the pull of gravity wells and the silence of void space. But this is alive. We are two separate beings, yet in this moment, we are one purpose, one motion." Jake watched, fascinated, as Zarakai began to experiment. Without any instruction, she discovered how shifting her weight affected Luna's direction. She learned that the mare responded not just to physical cues, but to intention, to the rider's focus and energy. Within minutes, she was guiding Luna in smooth circles and figure eights, her movements flowing seamlessly with the horses. It should have taken weeks to develop that kind of harmony. "Jake Morrison," Zarakai called out, her voice ringing with something that sounded like pure joy. "I understand now why your people formed such bonds with these creatures. They are not tools or servants. They are partners in the truest sense. They choose to carry us, to share their strength and speed, and in return, Jake finished, we give them purpose, companionship, care. It's a partnership that's lasted thousands of years." Luna, seeming to sense her rider's growing confidence, tossed her head and picked up her pace slightly. Jake almost called out a warning but stopped himself. Zarakai adjusted instantly, her body moving in perfect rhythm with the faster walk. "My people will not understand," Zarakai said, her voice carrying across the arena. "They will say it is inefficient, that our hover technology is superior. But they have never felt this connection, this melding of spirits. We have forgotten, in our quest for the stars, what it means to truly connect with another living being." As if in response to her words, Luna stopped in the center of the arena and turned her head back to look at her rider. Zarakai leaned forward, placing all four hands on the mare's neck in what looked like a blessing or a thank you. "I want to learn everything," she declared, looking at Jake with those enormous amber eyes. "Not just riding, but care, grooming, their language, their needs. I want to understand this partnership that helped shape your species." Jake chuckled, leaning against the arena fence. "Well, Ambassador, I reckon we can arrange that. Though I've got to warn you, once the horse bug bites, it doesn't let go. You might find yourself wanting to spend more time here than in those fancy diplomatic meetings." Zarakai's thin lips curved in that alien smile again. "That, Jake Morrison, sounds perfectly acceptable to me." As she resumed walking Luna around the arena, Jake watched the bioluminescent patterns on her skin pulse and swirl in time with the horse's movement. He'd been prepared to teach an alien how to ride. He hadn't expected to witness the birth of what might be the first interstellar horse enthusiast. Luna whinnied softly, and Zarakai laughed, a sound like silver bells that needed no translation. And Jake Morrison, who thought he'd seen everything in his 60 years, realized he was watching something unprecedented. The moment when humanity's oldest partnership expanded beyond Earth, beyond species, to touch the stars themselves. The sun climbed higher in the Montana sky, warming the ranch with golden light. In the arena, an alien and a horse moved as one, writing the first chapter of a new story that would ripple across galaxies. But for now, in this perfect moment, there was just the rhythm of hooves on earth, the whisper of wind through mane and tail, and the pure, simple joy of two souls discovering they were meant to move together. Jake smiled and settled in to watch. He had a feeling this was just the beginning. The pre-dawn air at Thunder Creek Ranch carried a chill that made Jake Morrison pull his jacket tighter as he made his way to the stables. It had been 2 weeks since Ambassador Zarakai's first riding lesson, and in that time, she'd turned his quiet ranch into the most unusual training facility on Earth. Jake heard her before he saw her, a melodious humming that seemed to resonate through the wooden walls of the stable. He found her in Luna's stall, all 4 arms working in perfect coordination as she groomed the mare. The sight still amazed him. The 7-foot-tall alien with violet skin and glowing markings, carefully running a brush through Luna's silver mane, while humming what he'd learned was a Valerian peace hymn. "Morning, Ambassador," Jake called softly, not wanting to startle either of them. Zarakai's large amber eyes swiveled toward him, an unsettling ability that had taken some getting used to. Her eyes could move independently, allowing her to watch him while still focusing on Luna. "Good morning, Jake. I hope you don't mind. I arrived early. Sleep is difficult when one's mind races with possibilities." Luna nickered softly and leaned into the brush strokes. The mare had taken to Zarakai like Jake had never seen a horse take to anyone. It was as if they shared some wavelength invisible to human perception. "I brought coffee," Jake offered, holding up a thermos. "And that tea you like, the one that tastes like liquid starlight or however you described it." Zarakai's thin lips curved in amusement. "Your memory serves you well, though I believe I said it tasted like the memory of starlight filtered through morning dew." "Right that," Jake chuckled, pouring her strange, iridescent tea into a specially made 4-handled mug. The Valerian government had sent various items to make their ambassador more comfortable, but Zarakai seemed to prefer the simple accommodations of the ranch. As she sipped her tea, continuing to groom Luna with her lower arms, Jake noticed something different about her appearance. The flowing robes she'd worn for the first week had been replaced by custom-made riding clothes, breeches that accommodated her unique leg structure, a fitted jacket with 4 sleeves, and boots that looked like a fusion of human riding boots and Valerian technology. "The embassy's fabrication unit created them based on my specifications," Zarakai explained, noticing his gaze. "I studied the history of human riding attire extensively. Function over form, yet there is an elegance to it, like the horses themselves." "Speaking of which," Jake said, leaning against the stall door, "you sure you're ready for what we discussed? Trail riding is a whole different animal from arena work." Zarakai's bioluminescent markings pulsed brighter. Jake had learned this indicated excitement. "I have been, as you humans say, chomping at the bit for this opportunity." She paused. "Though I researched the origin of that phrase and find it somewhat disturbing. The bit should not cause discomfort if properly fitted, correct?" "That's right," Jake agreed, continually impressed by her dedication to understanding every aspect of horsemanship. "And it's champing at the bit, technically, though most folks say it wrong." "Linguistic evolution," Zarakai mused, finishing Luna's grooming with a final sweep of the brush. "Another fascinating aspect of your species. But yes, I am ready for the trail ride. More than ready." As they prepared Luna and Jake's own mount, a steady gelding named Biscuit, Zarakai peppered him with questions about trail etiquette, wilderness safety, and the local ecosystem. Her curiosity was insatiable but never annoying. Each question showed deep thought and genuine interest. They led the horses out just as the first rays of sunlight painted the mountains pink and gold. Zarakai stopped, all four hands rising to her chest in that gesture of wonder Jake had come to recognize. "Every sunrise here is different," she said softly. "On Velaria, we control our weather, our light cycles. Everything is predictable, optimized. This chaos, this daily surprise, it's intoxicating." Jake mounted Biscuit with the ease of long practice. Zarakai flowed onto Luna's back with that uncanny grace that still made him shake his head in amazement. In 2 weeks, she'd progressed faster than any student he'd ever taught, not just in skill, but in understanding, that invisible communication between horse and rider that some people never achieved. They set off at a walk, following a well-worn trail that wound up into the foothills. The morning was perfect. Clear sky, cool air, birds calling from the pines. Jake kept glancing back at Zarakai, but she rode with the confidence of someone who'd been doing it for years. "Tell me about this trail," she requested as they climbed higher. "Its history, its significance." "Well," Jake began, settling into his storytelling voice, "this particular trail was first used by the Blackfoot tribe, probably hundreds of years ago. They'd follow the elk herds through these passes. Later, fur trappers used it, then settlers. My great-grandfather drove cattle through here back in the 1920s. Zarakai absorbed every word, occasionally asking for clarification or more details. Her questions revealed an understanding of Earth history that surprised him. She knew about the displacement of indigenous peoples, the environmental costs of settlement, the complex legacy of the American West. "History is never simple," she observed as they paused at a scenic overlook. The valley stretched below them, Jake's ranch a small collection of buildings amid the vast landscape. "My people have our own complicated past. We once believed that intelligence meant dominance, that advanced technology gave us the right to shape worlds to our will. We learned painfully that true advancement means harmony, not conquest." Luna shifted beneath her, and Zarakai automatically adjusted her position, maintaining perfect balance. The communication between them had become so subtle that Jake sometimes couldn't tell who was initiating movements. "That's why I'm really here," Zarakai continued, her voice taking on a more serious tone. "Not just for diplomatic relations, but to understand how your species maintains connections to what you call the natural world, even as you advance technologically. The horse-human relationship is the perfect example. You could have abandoned horses when you invented automobiles, but you didn't. Why?" Jake considered the question as they resumed their ride. "I suppose because machines can't replace everything. A car gets you from point A to point B, sure. But a horse is a companion, a partner. There's something about working with another living creature that feeds the soul in a way technology can't." "The soul," Zarakai repeated. "Another concept my people struggle with. We have consciousness, intelligence, but this idea of something beyond the physical. Tell me, Jake, do you believe horses have souls?" They were entering a grove of aspens now, the leaves shimmering gold in the morning light. Luna's ears swiveled constantly, taking in every sound, while Biscuit plodded along with the steady confidence of a veteran trail horse. "I do," Jake said without hesitation. "Maybe not in the religious sense, but there's something in them that's more than just instinct and training. I've seen horses mourn their friends, show joy at reunion, display courage that goes beyond self-preservation. If that's not a soul, I don't know what is." Zarakai was quiet for a long moment, her bioluminescent markings creating shifting patterns that Jake had learned indicated deep thought. Finally, she spoke. "On my world, we have creatures called Velani. They are crystalline beings, silicon-based life that moves so slowly most people think they're just rocks. But if you have patience, If you learn their incredibly slow language, you discover they are poets and philosophers. They taught us that consciousness takes many forms, exists on many timescales. She paused, running one hand along Luna's neck. I believe horses may have taught your species a similar lesson. That intelligence and worth are not measured solely by technology or speech, but by the depth of connection possible between beings. The trail began to descend toward a clear mountain stream. Jake dismounted to let Biscuit drink, and Zarakai followed suit with movements that were becoming more human-like even as they retained her alien grace. As the horses drank, Zarakai surprised Jake by producing a small device from her jacket. It looked like a crystalline flower, petals made of some material that seemed to shift between solid and liquid. I've been working on something, she said almost shyly. A translation device specifically for equine communication. Not words, of course, but emotions, intentions, perhaps even images. Would you think it wrong to try to communicate more directly with them? Jake leaned against a tree, considering. 30 years ago I would have said that was missing the point, that the beauty of working with horses is learning their language, not making them speak ours. But watching you these past 2 weeks, you already understand them better than most people ever do. If this device could deepen that understanding without taking away from the natural connection, I don't see the harm in trying. Zarakai's markings flared with joy. You are wise, Jake Morrison. My colleagues on the High Council said I was wasting valuable time on a primitive obsession. They don't understand that sometimes the most advanced thing we can do is remember how to connect without technology, and then use technology to enhance, not replace that connection. She activated the device, holding it near Luna's head. The mare's ears pricked forward with interest, but no alarm. For several moments, nothing seemed to happen. Then Zarakai gasped, her eyes widening to their fullest extent. She's showing me the trail from her perspective, Zarakai whispered. Not words, but impressions. The smell of water means rest. The sound of your voice means safety. The feeling of me on her back is warmth, partnership. The concept doesn't translate exactly, but it's positive. So positive. Tears. Jake had learned that Valerians could cry, though their tears were iridescent like oil on water, rolled down Zarakai's violet cheeks. She's happy. Purely, simply happy to be here, with us, doing what she was born to do. How can something so simple be so profound? Jake found himself getting a bit misty-eyed as well. That's the magic of it, Ambassador. Horses remind us that joy doesn't have to be complicated. Sometimes it's as simple as a good run on a clear morning with folks you trust. Zarakai deactivated the device and carefully stored it away. I need to think about this more before I use it again. The implications... But thank you for your openness, Jake. Many humans would fear what such communication might reveal. Only thing I'd fear, Jake said as they remounted, is finding out how much my horses actually complain about the hay quality. Zarakai's laughter rang through the mountains like silver bells, causing both horses to turn their ears back curiously. They continued their ride, climbing higher into terrain that became progressively rougher. Jake watched with growing pride as Zarakai handled each obstacle, crossing streams, navigating rocky sections, ducking low branches, with increasing confidence. They reached their destination just before noon, a high meadow that Jake had always thought of as his private paradise. Wild flowers carpeted the ground in purple and gold, and a small waterfall fed a crystal-clear pool. The horses grazed contentedly as Jake and Zarakai sat on a fallen log, sharing the lunch Jake had packed. My people would terraform this, Zarakai said quietly, gesturing at the untamed beauty around them. Make it perfect. Temperature regulated, dangerous animals removed, plants organized for optimal aesthetics. We've done it to hundreds of worlds. She turned to look at Jake, and her expression was sad. Have we lost something essential, do you think, in our quest for control? Maybe, Jake said carefully. But the fact that you're asking that question, that you're here learning to ride instead of in some climate-controlled meeting room, that tells me it's not too late to remember what you might have forgotten. Zarakai stood and walked to where Luna was grazing. The mare lifted her head, and for a moment, Alien and horse stood face to face, breathing the same mountain air, sharing the same space in the vast universe. "I want to bring horses to Velaria," Zarakai announced suddenly. "Not just as curiosities, but as teachers. My people need to remember what it means to partner with another species, to find joy in simplicity, to feel the ground beneath us instead of always floating above it." Jake joined her, placing a hand on Biscuit's solid shoulder. "That's a big decision, Ambassador. Horses need specific care, environment, companionship. And they'd be so far from home." "As am I," Zarakai pointed out. "Yet I have never felt more, what is your expression, at home than I do in your stable. We would create preserves, places where they could run free, hire human caretakers who understand them. It would be a bridge between our peoples, not of technology or trade, but of mutual care for these remarkable beings." She turned to face Jake fully, all four hands clasped in front of her in what he'd learned was a formal Valerian gesture. "Would you consider it? Being an advisor for such a project? Teaching others of my kind what you have taught me?" Jake was quiet for a long moment, watching the horses graze, feeling the mountain wind on his face. His ranch was his life, had been his family's life for generations. But he thought about Zarakai's joy these past 2 weeks. Her reverence for the animals he loved, her determination to understand not just the mechanics of riding, but the soul of it. "You know what?" he said finally. "My daughter's been after me to retire anyway. Says I'm too old to be running a ranch solo. Maybe it's time for this old horseman to see the stars, on one condition." "Name it," Zarakai said eagerly. "Luna comes with us. You two have something special, and it wouldn't be right to separate you now." The sound Zarakai made was beyond the translator's ability to interpret, but the joy in it was universal. She threw all 4 arms around Jake in a hug that nearly lifted him off his feet, then did the same to Luna, who accepted the embrace with patient dignity. "The council will say I've lost my mind," Zarakai laughed, her markings creating a light show of pure happiness. "Trading star charts for horse blankets, diplomatic meetings for mucking stalls. But Jake, I believe this might be the most important work I've ever done. Building understanding not through treaties and technology, but through the simple act of caring for another being." They remounted for the ride back, but the atmosphere had changed. What had started as a trail ride had become the planning session for something unprecedented, the first interstellar horse exchange program. As they descended through the afternoon shadows, Zarakai asked endless questions about transportation, care requirements, breeding programs, and training methods. "We'll need to start small," Jake advised. "Maybe a dozen horses to start, see how they adapt, and we'll need to be careful about selection, horses that are calm but not dull, adventurous but not skittish." "Like Luna," Zarakai said fondly, patting the mare's neck. "Like Luna," Jake agreed, "though I have a feeling she's one of a kind, just like her rider." They rode in companionable silence for a while, each lost in thoughts of the future. As the ranch came back into view, Zarakai spoke again. "Jake, do you really think my people can learn what horses have to teach? We've been among the stars for so long, I fear we've forgotten how to touch the ground." Jake considered his answer carefully. "You know, when humans first started riding horses thousands of years ago, we were just trying to go faster, carry more, conquer our neighbors. But somewhere along the way, we discovered something else. We found that in teaching horses to carry us, they taught us to be worthy of being carried. They made us better. More patient, more understanding, more connected to the world around us. If they could do that for a bunch of primitive humans, I reckon they can do it for advanced aliens too. Zarakai's translator made a sound Jake had learned, meant deep emotion. From your mouth to the universe's ears, my friend. As they dismounted back at the ranch, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the ground, Jake realized his life was about to change in ways he couldn't imagine. In a few months, he might be standing on an alien world, teaching violet-skinned beings how to post at the trot and read a horse's body language. But watching Zarakai lead Luna back to the stable, moving in perfect harmony with the mare, all four hands working to make sure Luna was comfortable, Jake knew it was the right decision. The universe was vast and full of wonders, but sometimes the greatest wonder was the simple connection between two living beings who chose to move as one. "Hey, Ambassador," he called out. Zarakai turned, her large eyes curious. "Welcome to the wonderful, frustrating, life-changing world of being horse-crazy. There's no cure, you know." Her laughter, bright as starlight, echoed through the barn. "Jake Morrison, I sincerely hope you're right." 6 months after her first riding lesson, Ambassador Zarakai stood in the center of the newly constructed Valerian Equestrian Exchange on the outskirts of New Harmony, the capital city of Valaria. The facility was a marvel of blended architecture. Soaring crystalline spires typical of Valerian design merged seamlessly with practical wooden stables and fenced pastures that would have looked at home in Montana. Jake Morrison stood beside her, still not quite believing he was on an alien planet 37 light-years from Earth. The lavender sky with its two suns had taken some getting used to, as had the lower gravity that made him feel like he might float away if he wasn't careful. But the expression on Zarakai's face as she watched the first Earth horses exploring their new paddocks made every moment of the strange journey worth it. "They're adjusting well," Jake observed, watching Luna lead a small herd in investigating their new surroundings. The silver mare had naturally assumed leadership of the 12 horses they'd brought, a carefully selected group chosen for their calm temperaments and adaptability. "Better than the council," Zarakai said dryly, her forearms gesturing at a group of Valerian officials standing at what they clearly considered a safe distance from the paddocks. Their bioluminescent markings flickered in patterns Jake had learned indicated skepticism mixed with nervous curiosity. The tallest of the officials, High Counselor Velthan, approached with the gliding walk typical of Valerians. His deep purple skin and elaborate robes marked him as someone of considerable importance. Jake had met him several times during the planning phase and found him to be intelligently cautious rather than openly hostile to the project. "Ambassador Zarakai," Velthan said, his translator giving his words a formal tone. "The Council requires another demonstration of the practical applications of this endeavor. Many still question the allocation of resources for what they term recreational primitiveness." Zarakai's markings flashed in what Jake recognized as irritation, but her voice remained diplomatic. "Of course, High Counselor, though I would point out that the cultural exchange has already yielded unexpected benefits. The biorhythmic synchronization techniques I've developed through riding have applications in numerous fields, from medical treatments to spacecraft navigation." She turned to Jake. "Would you help me with Nova? I think she'll be perfect for today's demonstration." Nova was a chestnut quarter-horse mare with a steady disposition and an almost supernatural ability to remain calm in any situation. As Jake helped Zarakai tack up, he noticed dozens of young Valerians gathering at the fence line. Unlike the adults, they showed no fear, only bright-eyed curiosity. "The younglings understand," Zarakai murmured, following his gaze. "They haven't yet learned that advancement means abandoning all that came before." She mounted Nova with that flowing grace that still amazed Jake, her custom-made tack accommodating her forearms perfectly. The saddle was a work of art itself, combining traditional leather craftsmanship with Valarian adaptive materials that adjusted to both rider and horse for optimal comfort. "Council members," Zarakai addressed the gathered officials as Nova stood quietly beneath her. "You have asked for practical applications. Let me show you what humans have known for millennia. That the partnership between rider and mount creates something greater than either alone." She began with simple movements, walking Nova in patterns that demonstrated the precise control possible through subtle communication. But Jake could see she was building to something more. The bioluminescent patterns on her skin began to pulse in rhythm with Nova's movement. "Observe," Zarakai called out. She closed her large eyes and spread all four arms wide. Nova continued moving in increasingly complex patterns, circles, serpentines, figure eights, all without any visible cues from her rider. The gathered Valerians fell silent. Even Velthan's skeptical expression shifted to one of intrigue. "How?" one of the younger counselors asked. "You're not using any technological interface." Zarakai opened her eyes, bringing Nova to a smooth halt. "Biorhythmic synchronization. By matching my neural oscillations to the horse's natural rhythms, we achieve a form of communication that transcends species barriers. It requires no technology, only patience, practice, and mutual trust." She dismounted and approached the council, leading Nova with her. The mayor followed calmly, occasionally nosing at Zarakai's shoulder in a gesture of affection. "This is what we've lost," Zarakai continued, her passion evident in the rapid shifting of her markings. "We've become so dependent on our technology that we've forgotten how to truly connect. These horses offer us a chance to remember, to relearn skills that could benefit us in ways we haven't yet imagined." A young Valerian at the fence called out, "Can we try? Can we learn?" Before the council could object, Zarakai led Nova to the fence. "Hold out your hand," she told the youngling. "Slowly, let her come to you." The child, Jake still had trouble determining Valerian ages, but this one seemed equivalent to a human 10-year-old, extended a violet hand through the fence. Nova sniffed delicately, then pushed her soft muzzle into the small palm. The youngling's markings exploded in patterns of pure joy that needed no translation. Within moments, dozens of young Valerians were clamoring for their chance to meet the horses. "This," Zarakai said, turning back to the council, "is why we need this program. Look at their faces. When was the last time you saw our youth express such wonder? Such connection to another living being?" Velthan watched the younglings with an unreadable expression. Finally, he spoke. "You have made your point, Ambassador. But there are still concerns about safety, about the resources required to maintain these horses in our environment." Jake stepped forward. "If I may, High Counselor, on Earth we have a saying, you can tell the greatness of a nation by how it treats its animals. The care and respect we show to other species reflects our own character. These horses aren't just animals to be maintained. They're teachers, partners, friends. The resources you spend on them will be returned tenfold in what they teach your people." "And they have already begun teaching," another voice added. Jake turned to see Dr. Kalani, the Valerian physician who had been studying the biorhythmic synchronization phenomenon. Her markings indicated excitement as she approached the group. "The preliminary data is remarkable," she continued. "Subjects who have engaged in regular interaction with the horses show improved stress responses, better emotional regulation, and enhanced empathic capabilities. And the synchronization effect Ambassador Zarakai demonstrated, it has potential applications in treating numerous neurological conditions." She projected a holographic display showing brainwave patterns. "This is a Valerian neural scan during normal activity, and this," the display shifted, "is during horse interaction, The harmonization is unlike anything in our medical databases. Velthon studied the data with growing interest. You're suggesting that these primitive animals could advance our medical science? I'm suggesting, Dr. Kalani said carefully, that sometimes advancement comes from unexpected sources. That perhaps our definition of primitive needs reassessment. Jake noticed that more adult Valerians had gathered during the discussion, drawn by the younglings' excitement. Some were even approaching the fence themselves, tentatively reaching out to touch the horses. Luna, ever the ambassador, had positioned herself where she could graciously accept attention from multiple admirers. There is another matter, Velthon said, his formal tone softening slightly. If we approve full funding for this program, we will need more instructors. One human and one converted Valerian cannot teach an entire planet. Zarakai's markings shifted to hopeful patterns. Jake has been in communication with other horsemen and women on Earth. Many are intrigued by the opportunity to share their knowledge among the stars. And several Valerians have shown remarkable aptitude. She gestured to a young adult who had been helping at the stables. Trenvar here has already mastered basic riding and shows an intuitive understanding of horse behavior. Trenvar stepped forward, his markings showing embarrassed pride. I never imagined I would find purpose in caring for another species. But these horses, they've taught me patience I didn't know I possessed. When I ride, I feel connected to something ancient and profound. It's like discovering a part of myself I didn't know was missing. Jake smiled at the young Valerian's words. He'd watched Trenvar grow from a skeptical volunteer into a dedicated horseman over the past weeks. The transformation reminded him of his own daughter when she'd first discovered horses, that moment when interest became passion. Perhaps, Velthon said slowly, I should experience this connection myself before making a final decision. The entire gathering seemed to hold its breath. Zarakai's markings flared with surprise and hope. High Counselor, I would be honored to introduce you to the horses. I will observe first, Velthon said quickly, but Jake caught what might have been curiosity in the formal Valerian's expression. Over the next hour, Jake and Zarakai gave an impromptu exhibition and lesson. They demonstrated basic horsemanship skills, explained the care requirements, and most importantly, showed the partnership between horse and rider. Trenvar joined them, his beginner's enthusiasm balanced by genuine skill as he rode a gentle gelding named Cosmic, a name the Earth horses had been given by their Valerian admirers. The crowd grew as word spread through the Valerian communication networks. Jake found himself surrounded by aliens asking questions about everything from horse evolution to training philosophy. Their curiosity was infectious, reminding him of the joy of sharing his passion with eager students. As the afternoon wore on, Valerian days were longer than Earth days, something Jake was still adjusting to, Velthon finally approached Luna, who was taking a break from greeting admirers. She is the one you first rode, he said to Zarakai. It wasn't a question. Yes, Luna chose me as much as I chose her. That's how it works with horses. The partnership must be mutual. Velthon extended one of his 4 hands slowly. Luna sniffed it, then did something Jake had rarely seen her do with strangers. She stepped closer and rested her forehead against the High Counselor's chest in a gesture of trust. The effect on Velthon was immediate. His formal posture melted away, and his markings displayed patterns Jake had never seen before, something deep and complex that the translator couldn't interpret. She accepts me, Velthon said, wonder in his voice, without knowing my status or achievements, simply accepts. That's the gift of horses, Jake said quietly. They don't care about your job title or your bank account or, in this case, your position on the High Council. They care about who you are in this moment, how you treat them, the energy you bring to the interaction. Velthon spent several more minutes with Luna, and when he finally stepped back, his entire demeanor had changed. He turned to address the gathered crowd, his voice carrying the authority of his position, but tempered with newfound understanding. "The High Council will approve full funding for the Valerian Equestrian Exchange," he announced. "Furthermore, we will establish a cultural studies program to document and learn from this interspecies partnership. What we have dismissed as primitive may indeed be a sophistication we have forgotten." The crowd erupted in patterns of light and sounds of celebration. Young Valerians danced with joy, while adults nodded approvingly. Jake found himself swept up in a four-armed hug from Zara-Kai. "We did it," she said, her translator barely keeping up with her emotional speech. "Jake, we actually did it. This is just the beginning. Imagine, horses teaching patience to a species that travels faster than light, showing us that true connection doesn't require technology, reminding us that joy can be as simple as a gallop across an open field." As the celebration continued around them, Jake watched the horses adapting to their new home with the resilience that had made them humanity's partners for millennia. Luna stood like a queen holding court, graciously accepting attention from a stream of Valarian admirers. Nova demonstrated her smooth gaits for an entranced audience. Even the initially skeptical council members were drawn into the horses' sphere of influence. "You know what this means," Zara-Kai said, her voice more serious. "We'll need more horses, more instructors, proper facilities across multiple continents. This program will grow beyond what either of us imagined." Jake nodded, feeling both excitement and the weight of responsibility. "Good thing horses have been adapting to new situations for thousands of years. They crossed ice bridges, survived deserts, and now they're taking on alien worlds. I reckon they can handle it." As Valaria's twin suns began their descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold unlike anything on Earth, Jake reflected on the strange journey that had brought him here. 6 months ago, he'd been a simple ranch owner in Montana, teaching an unusual student how to ride. Now he was 37 light years from home, helping to establish the first interstellar equestrian program. "Jake," Zara-Kai said, drawing his attention, "I've been thinking, this cultural exchange should go both ways. What if we brought young Valerians to Earth? Let them experience horses in their natural environment, learn from different trainers, see the historical relationship between your species?" "An exchange student program," Jake mused. "I like it, though you'll have to prepare them for Earth gravity, and weather that isn't controlled, and the fact that we haven't figured out how to make saddles that adjust themselves." Zara-Kai laughed, that silver bell sound that horses and humans alike seem to find soothing. Perhaps that's part of what they need to learn, that not everything needs to be optimized, that there's value in tradition, in doing things the way they've been done for generations. A young Valerian approached them shyly. "Ambassador, Mr. Jake, could you teach me to ride? I want to learn everything, how to care for them, communicate with them, be worthy of their trust." Jake smiled at the youngling. "First lesson starts tomorrow at dawn. Be prepared to get dirty. Mucking stalls is part of the deal." The youngling's markings flashed with determination. "I'll be there!" As the celebration wound down and the horses were settled for their first night under alien stars, Jake found himself standing with Zara-Kai at the edge of the pasture. Luna and Nova grazed peacefully nearby, apparently unfazed by the lavender grass and double sunset. "Thank you," Zara-Kai said simply, "for taking a chance on a strange alien who wanted to learn to ride, for leaving everything you knew to help us remember what we'd forgotten, for seeing the potential in this crazy idea." Jake leaned against the fence, made from a Valerian material that looked like solidified starlight but felt remarkably like wood. "Thank you for reminding me that horses' ability to connect with us isn't limited to humans, that their gift of partnership is truly universal." "Do you miss Earth?" Zara-Kai asked. Jake considered the question. "Sometimes. I miss the smell of pine trees and the way the mountains looked in the morning. But this?" He gestured at the scene before them. Horses grazing under an alien sky, Valerian younglings planning their riding lessons, two species learning from each other in ways no one could have predicted. This feels like exactly where I'm supposed to be. Zarakai's four hands moved in a complex gesture he'd learned was the Valerian equivalent of a deep bow. Then welcome home, Jake Morrison. May the partnership between our species be as enduring as the one between humans and horses. As night fell over Valaria, bringing out stars in configurations no human had names for, Jake watched Luna lift her head and whinny. Not a call of distress, but one of contentment. The sound echoed across the alien landscape, and somewhere in the distance, a Valerian voice answered with a fair imitation of the sound. It wasn't perfect, but it was a beginning. The first Earth horses on an alien world settled in for the night, and with them, the seeds of understanding that would grow beyond anything their human partner could imagine. But for now, Jake Morrison was content to stand under foreign stars, listening to familiar sounds of horses at peace, knowing that some connections truly were universal. In the months and years to come, the Valerian Equestrian Exchange would grow from this single facility to a planet-wide phenomenon. Young Valerians would travel to Earth to study at traditional riding schools. Human trainers would arrive to share their knowledge, each bringing different disciplines and philosophies. The biorhythmic synchronization techniques would revolutionize Valerian medicine and psychology. And at the heart of it all would be the horses themselves, patient teachers who asked only for respect, care, and partnership in return for their profound gifts. But that was all in the future. Tonight, Jake simply stood with his alien friend, watching horses and Valerians begin their dance of mutual understanding under stars that witnessed the start of something extraordinary. The universe had become a little smaller and infinitely richer, all because one curious alien had wanted to learn to ride. As Luna approached the fence and pushed her soft nose into Jake's hand, he smiled. Some things, it seemed, were the same no matter what planet you were on, and that, perhaps, was the most profound lesson of all.